I call this September 17th, 2025 Finance and Resource Committee meeting to order. It is 10:01 a.m. I'll call roll. Liz and Jason here. Moving on. I move, actually.
I'll move to approve the minutes from the August 13th, 2025 Finance and Resource Committee meeting.
Second. Vote or roll.
Yes.
Liz, Jason is a yes. That passes. Moving on to public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? Seeing none, we'll move on. All right, that brings us to 3A referendum update.
Of course, morning.
Good morning.
Pull up the webpage if anyone has seen it yet. Great. So as you're all aware, we do have the project progress tracker and the financial overview links. And then we scroll down, the August 25 update has been published. There is a PDF link at the bottom of that 25 update as well. Not a lot of pictures or no pictures to show, nothing glamorous, but just a lot of in-depth work on the phase 2 schematic design estimating, which is completed and being revised, along with phase 2 design development. The design development will allow VGS then to go out to bid for that phase 2 work. We're still in weekly meetings. And we have one going on right now, focusing on ways to reduce costs. One of the issues we're seeing is that mechanical upgrades to the buildings are coming in at a schematic budget that's become challenging. So we're looking for ways to reduce costs on that while still achieving the outcome as described in the scope matrix. With that revised schematic design for getting on target for our budget, we are meeting with the principals again to review our designs with them and make sure that we're making any of the work that's updated in their spaces for remodeling is doing the best we can this first time at it. Our phase 1 documents are going out to bid, I believe, tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday. Sorry, tomorrow or Friday. VGS will push those out. VGS will scope out those bids in October. And then we'll begin scheduling and coordinating the construction activities. One of the challenges we're going to have is all of the buildings that we're working on to one degree or another, the framing in the exterior doors, there's typically the caulk sealant on those frames typically is hot for asbestos. So we're going to have a challenge coordinating the removal of a door frame under the asbestos regulations. While with one company demoing it out and then another company coming in and installing the new frame and door hardware set. But with VGS, we'll be sure to coordinate, and I will be working separately with EMC on the abatement process, owner direct. So more to come on that with the scheduling, and we'll work closely with the buildings to make sure that we're not impacting them, or we're impacting them as little as possible. We're continuing with the design development phase for phase 2 and scope refinement for that. And then we are scheduled, I believe, for a quarterly school board update in November. I don't know that we've picked the date yet necessarily. Has one been chosen? For which date? The November update for the quarterly update for the board in November.
It will be at a board meeting.
Yeah,
Probably the second one.
The second one? Okay. And that is all I have. on the update for this month. And can answer any questions.
The only real questions I have are basically the same ones as every month. Are you feeling comfortable where everything is at?
Yes,
And that is,
I don't know that Kevin ever feels comfortable with.
I understand.
We probably need
Yeah.
to qualify this as.
Okay, let me say this,
As,
I don't want you.
there's the normal person and then there's Kevin's the one anxiety about it.
I'll level up to the level that we should bring it to the full board. Is
I don't-
that? No, so.
I don't, it'd be my job to worry, and I'm comfortable. I'm worried in a comfortable way. We have the right people on it. We're challenged, but we're gonna solve these issues, but nothing to the level of that has to be a concern for you.
Okay,
Thank you.
anything else, Liz? Okay, then we will move on to 3B. Fiscal year 2024-25 unaudited financials.
So we're 2 months into our 25-26 year and finally officially closing out 24-25. We have several reports due to the state that reflect the end of year. The first one was August 29th. We have another one that's what I'll call the big one for our office, and I say our office is primarily Jess, completing that by Friday. And then our auditors are required to complete their work by December 15th, which is why we generally have the auditors in December. But you'll see very little change between now and December, if any. It is very rare to see sort of material change, in particular, given that we're so close to the annual report being due to the state. So relative to budget, we have, I think, good news. We finished the year $1.6 million to the good, so to favorable, from our final budget, and we even finished slightly better, $100,000 to the good of our original budget. So the committee probably recalls we passed an original budget last October. It might have actually been November, but last fall. Had a revised budget that was approved in late winter, early spring, and we finished better than both of those. The rating agencies are going to look favorable on that, and that combined with our plan to put our surplus into fund balance for 25-26 will be doubly good for rating agencies. The funds that our office is most concerned about are funds 10, 27, and 39. So those are our 10 and 27 are operating funds, and 39 is debt. We did finish over our budget in fund 27, but again, the two funds combined, general and special ed, finished phases. If you haven't paid much attention to the student activity funds in the past, those are funds that we maintain essentially for student clubs or athletic groups that raise money and that we hold on to that money for them and run their expenses. So you'll see that there is changes to those fund balances based on how much they've raised or how much they've spent. In Fund 50, we've been purposely spending down our fund balance. We had achieved a balance high enough that DPI essentially required us to spend it down. So we had, I'll say, the longest freezer replacement process construction in history. So we finished that and we were able to use our fund balance in Fund 50 to pay for that. So it didn't take the operating expenses. And finally, you'll see our community service, which is primarily recreation, finished ahead of budget. So that one's interesting because if you have more participation, you're probably going to have more expenses too. So participation was up. We hire more people to run the programs, but overall it netted about where we need.
And that whole fund is intentionally kind of designed to run out of net zero.
Correct, yeah.
So,
Mhm. So that's our unaudited financials. The next, you'll hear about 25, 26 will be from the auditor in December. Sorry, 24, 25. You hear about 25, 26 a lot. Thank you, Jess.
So right into 25, 26 then. Right? Ready, sorry.
Any questions, Liz? Me either. So then, yeah, we'll move into 3C, Director of Finance report.
All right, so as we are, it's still very early in the year, only but 2.5 weeks into the school year. And 2.5 months into the fiscal year, we are just looking at a very high level of the overall expenditures. However, my report really digs down into each object and gets pretty granular. So what you guys don't see over the course of a month is Scott and I talking constantly about the different expenses that we see. The budgets for each of the sites and our departments. And if we're underspent and overspent. So what we do is we discuss the timing of expenses, we have open positions. Is there a project that's being delayed that's maybe causing some of this report to show that we're either over or under budget? When we do see overspending, we try to figure out if it's an actual overage. Is it just earlier than expected costs? Or what's really going on? We also have kind of parsed out our budget to have other people oversee it. So buildings and grounds has their own budget that they're in charge of. All of our schools are in charge of their budgets. So they receive a monthly report that also shows their year-end projection. And they're responsible for that. So if we see an area that's trending high, but we also know it's a department or a site that has never overspent before, we're going to be less worried about it. So that's kind of what we go through on a monthly basis. And then we dig into it if it's especially a district controlled area, like salaries. We talked about last year when we made those cuts to the substitutes. Or we've talked to a department of, hey, you're getting close to your budget. What is the plan for the rest of the year? What has caused you to trend high? So we are constantly having these conversations. This point in the year, we are looking good. That's fine.
Okay, and then I know last year, I spent a lot of time focusing, well, I guess I don't know how much time, but you spent some time focusing, making sure things were covered right, because
Yes, we are
so-
still favorites.
still doing that, great,
Yeah.
because I would imagine that what you see here, would, if you hadn't have cleaned some of that up, we would be probably seeing a lot more things, I'm guessing, all over the board, because again, if things aren't coded properly in the system, then nobody in the chain is going to know,
Right.
how well or not well we're doing.
Yes, and one of the very first examples of that is in Fund 10, you'll see the. I think it's the 170s, the salaries, and it says it's 20,000 over budget. Or $20,000 higher than you've seen trending. Well, what we did is we coded seasonal employees to a seasonal code this year, which we've not done previously. So well, it looks like it's trending high. We actually had a budget there and they're not over budget. So, and it's an expected variance. And I knew instantly when I saw it, I knew exactly what it was. I was like, oh, that's probably our seasonal clothes.
Are you anticipating that these overages that are listed on the report for today, will eventually not be up the budget, or you can look at?
Correct, yeah, as you'll see, so as I dug into the 310s and the 320s, some of those were showing that they are high for the trend. However, if I looked at last year, what we had spent to this, so far this year, we were actually under last year's spend. So our spending has changed over the past couple of years, which then
The trend then.
the trend line is different. for it.
So have you broken out purchase services into all these different lines? Is that part of what we're seeing here too?
Right, so, the 300, which are our services, are broken out into services. Utilities. Utilities is one where it's showing it's high right now. However, something we started last year is coding some of our, utilities to Fund 50 for the kitchen usage. We have meters that actually tell us how much is being used in the kitchen, so we can code it appropriately. But the trend is looking at 5 years of data, so that's going to skew it.
Sure. Okay,
One of the things that Jess and I calibrate on is when she sees a variance she's looking at the object level. Then we'll zoom out and look at it from what we call categories, so essentially site level. And so the purchase services, for instance, when we zoom out and look at it from a site level, it is primarily buildings and grounds. Which is something that we can then go to Kevin and say, hey, why is that? And generally his answer is, well, remember, we have this project we did in July, we have this project we did in August. We're not doing something next May, so I'm on top of it.
and things like, what was the last emergency thing, it was the, Jeremy talked about a little bit. Yeah, at West, the big parts, yeah.
Yeah, they believe that was a chiller, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Children, yes, that's the word I was looking for, so,
Very doesn't say.
so like that. Is that reflected in here, or is that, do we put that somewhere else?
No, that would be reflected in our. In the expenses that,
expenditures.
yeah,
If we pay for it from Fund 10,
Mhm.
yeah.
Right, okay.
Was any of the damage from the flooding, is that shown in this report, or are we still waiting to pay on those
Maybe a little,
insurance?
'cause,
Okay,
yeah, this is
right.
only through the end of August.
Oh, sure.
so we maybe had
Okay.
invoices that have come through, but I'm sure our September report. might have
Shown them.
Really reflect that.
Okay.
And we have set up a special code
Okay,
for everything we have to spend from the flood,
okay.
which we will then submit to insurance. We're continuing to research FEMA. It doesn't look like there is an option for public entities to request any FEMA assistance. So it looks like it's limited to, personal property owners and small businesses.
Okay.
And even small businesses can only get loans.
Yeah.
That's disappointing, but not really anything we can do about it.
And so if there was insurance payments, that probably would, the payments would reflect and would take maybe a couple months to show them.
Yeah, that's right.
Reference. So, okay. Okay.
Okay, I don't have any further questions. Alright. And we'll be on to 3D, August financials.
Yeah, so this is now at a higher level. I think the main thing I want to keep hitting on the next, this month is we're still so early. We've only run one teacher payroll thus far. But everything is on track. Really, our first reliable indicator is at the end of the first quarter, which will be at the end of this month. So our next finance committee meeting, we have our first real reliable indicator. I have my first meeting with CISA 5 on Friday. Even they want to wait until a few months are in before it makes sense for them to, calibrate with us on our financials. Just as an example of how early it is in the budgeting season, if you were to scroll down to, I guess it's slide 3, which is a graph of our total revenues. We've received so few revenues at this point that it doesn't even show on the graph because of the scale. So I just think that's a good representative example of how early it is in the year. On slide. Let's see, I'm using numbers because it's a PDF, but on our total expenses, so there's an expense summary and it says total expenditures. And you've got a blue line, a gray line, and an orange line. I'm just pointing out that we want ideally the gray and the orange to be close, and you can see that they're basically on top of each other.
Yeah.
So overall expenses, we are in very good shape, and revenues. We're in good shape, but we don't get any revenues through this point in time, period anyway.
And then the variances in the state and federal revenue. Are those expected or are those just still related to, we haven't gotten it?
It's just so
Final
early,
counts yet.
you can see we haven't actually received any state revenue to this point.
Right,
So
so,
last year we had received a negative amount at this point, so.
okay. Yeah, with whatever it is, 0.03% of our revenue coming in, there's not really a lot to look at here. All right, so, I don't really have any further questions, Liz. And really, we're just kind of saying next month is the month we'll start to see some, we assume we'll start. to see
It's the
some-
first reliable dipstick.
Okay. Anything else you want to cover with August financials?
No.
All right, then we can move on to the state of Wisconsin private school voucher program and how it affects us. So I think this is something that came up in a previous board meeting you had mentioned, and you had said that you'd be able to provide some more context, and this looks like what we're trying to do here.
So actually WASBO, the Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials, published an article in May relative to private school vouchers. So I provided a kind of a synopsis of that here for you, as well as the link to the full article. Generally, what private school vouchers do is use state aid to pay for qualifying students. So there's certain income requirements for a student to qualify to be able to go to a private school. So it's using state funds to pay private educational institutions. That is state aid we otherwise would have received. What the school board can do then is tax back to the populace the lost state aid. So in reality, our property taxpayers are paying for certain qualifying individuals to go to private schools. So it is a mechanism that takes public money either from the state or from local property taxpayers to fund private schools. That in a nutshell is pragmatically fiscally what it is.
And it's not all private schools, it's, they have to also meet certain requirements.
Oh, yeah, okay, so it is only private schools. But yes, the private schools that there are qualifications for the private schools to meet certain thresholds.
Right.
I believe some things like, well, go ahead.
The school that my daughter goes to, they do not follow one of the DPI requirements for, in order to receive that aid to, their testing methods, they test very differently. And that's a not negotiable for them, so no,
So they don't get any funding.
no voucher, no state funding. However, another private school that is similar may bend on it, or now that we're seeing these amounts go up further and further, I would imagine it would be more enticing for private schools to say, well, maybe we could make a change. So we don't really know. We're seeing a trend that we don't like for the public schools, and we don't, again, out of our control, we don't really know as the law is written, or as I understand it, which is a vague understanding. Really, the private schools just need to hit those qualifications, those metrics. And their students need to be under that, that per family income cap, correct? Probably.
I don't know a lot about it because
Okay.
from my standpoint, I just know what we have to pay them.
Mhm.
But generally speaking, yes.
Okay. The point, I guess the point I'm putting on public record is that we have to do this and we don't have a whole lot of choice in it.
Correct.
And these payments being made out are directly related to students, qualifying students being enrolled in private school in from Wauwatosa versus using the public school system.
Correct.
So this number, like, it's about 1.6 million that we paid last school year, that directly reflects resident TOSA students that are going to private schools, or is it like an average of the state?
I believe it's our students
It is our
that
students.
actually
Okay.
are choosing not to attend.
So if it's 1.6 million, we have an idea of how many students that is? Estimate.
I don't know.
Yeah, right, okay.
You'll see a graph on the last page that you're kind of referencing the impact on Wauwatosa. The floodgates sort of opened around between 2018 and 2020, where a state law was changed. Private school vouchers used to be limited to, I believe it was Racine. Some in Milwaukee and maybe a couple like in Wisconsin Rapids or something, but it was a very small program. And you can see back in 2015, our exposure was maybe $100,000. When the state expanded the voucher program. And there, there's lots of political opinions on vouchers, non-vouchers, but without getting into that, the program expanded, which created much more exposure for every school district across the state. And took our total, I'll say our taxpayer cost from under $200,000 to what you said now 1.6 million.
So it looks to me like from 15 and probably prior, it looks like it's an inflationary amount, like you said, that is very limited as to who qualified for it. We get to 2018, 2019, when floodgates start to open, and then we start to now see a bit of an exponential curve starting. So I think this is something we should pay attention to, and make sure that we're doing what we can to retain our own here.
It certainly would help our taxpayers. It does not, just to, I guess emphasize, it doesn't have an impact on our actual budget because we are able to recoup the money, but it is almost like someone getting double taxed. At least that's why I would look at it. The state's collecting money in taxes and then giving it to certain private schools, and then we're turning around and taxing the same people in property taxes to recoup that money.
Okay.
So this this does come from property taxes, not from general state income tax or
This is property tax that we pass along.
okay.
So we pay the state, which that money comes from our taxpayers. And then we as a district.
So we don't pay the state.
We don't pay.
We all do as individuals via state income tax,
Okay.
sales tax. State collects all that money. And they would have sent it to the school district, in our case, $1.6 million. Which we would have said thank you and then not pass that along to our property taxpayers, but instead, it doesn't come to us, it goes to the private, some private schools. And then we have to turn around and tax our, at property tax.
Mhm.
Gotcha. So this essentially gets then put into what gets decided on as far as the school district mill rate?
Correct.
Okay, so it's one of the many
If
factors.
you look, and on the property tax bill, it says, you know, Wauwatosa School District, and I believe, Jason, had you forwarded me something that there,
And that was me.
you list
Yeah.
that. Is it Green Bay?
Green Bay has added it to their property taxes.
So they have a line now showing how much they're going to the voucher schools. Okay,
And actually, Robin Binding, our state rep for this area, is introducing a bill to make it statewide.
okay.
Yesterday, that was announced, right?
Oh, all right. Yeah, you're right. So right now it's. Hidden's the wrong word. It's not, but it's commingled as a school district property tax. So it doesn't show, unless someone were paying attention to this level of detail on the revenue caption. I hope no one is.
Oh, I bet there are.
They wouldn't even know, you know, that this is going to. private
Right.
schools.
Okay, I think that answers my questions, and I hope we do get to a spot where it's shown as two line items on our property taxes, because I certainly would like to know what's happening with that money too. All right, any other questions?
Well, thank you for that, explanation.
Yeah. All right, and then moving on to 3F, City of Wauwatosa and Frederick Hospital Tax Settlement. I don't have any background on this,
Yeah.
so looking forward to learning what it's about.
So I meet with John Regini, the finance director at the city, at least quarterly, sometimes a little bit more often. And he got me up to speed about a month ago on what's been apparently an ongoing issue with Freighter and the city. So my summary is that going back to okay, so around 2024, Freighter must have taken issue with their property tax bill. And I suppose like any other person that takes issue with their property tax bill, they can go to the city and, you know, request a reassessment. Now Freighter, unlike any individual taxpayer, also has lots of resources legally that they're able to pursue something maybe in a way that a individual taxpayer couldn't.
True.
What was at issue is at hospitals, certain portions of a hospital are tax exempt and certain portions of a hospital are not tax exempt. And Freighter was taking issue with the portion that was seen as, they claimed more should be tax exempt, essentially to lower their property tax costs, right? What you can see in so Freighter was claiming they paid $33 million more than they should have. And the city, I mean, I wasn't privy to the legal negotiations. Essentially, they were at an impasse, right? The city said, you owe us this. Freighter said, no, we think we owe you that. They went to, it began getting litigated, and eventually they reached a settlement. And what you see here is the press release from that settlement. The takeaway for the school district is that Freighter is going to receive a refund of $10 million. That refund will come from the city, which is where all property taxes are collected. Okay. The city though says, hey, we don't, we're not 100% of the taxation authority. The other taxation authorities in Wauwatosa are this school district, MATC, the county. So each of those authorities has a portion of the 10 million that needs to get repaid to Freighter. The city and the school district are the two largest taxation authorities. So our exposure here is a little over $3 million. That will be or already has gone back to Freighter from the city. Okay. We have a very good, an outstanding working relationship with the city. We will have to pay them back $3 million. But they are willing to work with us on a financing plan. Or other avenues so that we don't have to directly tax back our people $3 million all at once. Right, that would be an option. The options for us would be to, I'll say, like, suck it up and pay $3 million out of fund balance. We could levy an additional tax of $3 million to just get this off the books. Or we could enter into a financing plan with the city. I'll just make it really easy. Let's say $300,000 a year for 10 years. And we would tax back our citizens $300,000 and then pay back that to the city over 10 years. And then there's a million options with it. We could look for a year, for instance, where we get some debt paid off maybe and use that as a year to, instead of taxing 300,000, we tax $1 million because there's in some ways no property tax impact then. But the bottom line is we're going to have to pay this back. The city is willing to work with us so that we have options. And because they also don't, they know we're all sensitive to the taxpayers getting hit with $10 million all at once. No one wants that. Those are afraid of me. Who already got their money, so now they don't care how.
How it's enforced,
Yeah.
right? So one way or another, this is going to be passed on to property owners. School district. So again, it comes down to, there's a lump sum that's gonna go on the property taxes one way or another, spread out some sort of way. Part of it, 3 million is roughly gotta come from the district somehow.
Correct.
And the rest comes from the city, but either way, all of that comes from the taxpayers.
Correct. Yep.
So,
Yeah, a total of this is a redistribution of the tax bill, right? Freight arts tax goes down, which results in everyone else's tax bill for the last 3 years. Probably also going forward, but there won't be a repayment going forward because it's not contentious right now.
And the reason that the school district owes the city money, is that because we paid less than, because Freighter paid more? So in those 3 years, Freighter paid, let's say, more than what they were supposed to, which means we then, in those 3 years, paid less than we were supposed to.
Well, so we don't pay property taxes. The city has to give the $10 million back to Freighter. And that retroactively is redistributing the tax base. So, like I said, we could just suck it up and pay it out of fund balance. I mean, that in theory or legally could be done. But the state has a provision called property tax chargeback that in the event there is a redistribution like this, we can recoup it, because retroactively that's what's happened. Is they're kind of said the settlement is kind of saying, hey, if you look back 3 years, you should have assessed Freighter less and assessed everybody else more. And it would have been the same amount collected, but just a little bit more from Liz, a little bit more from Jason, a bunch less from Freighter. And retroactively, that's what's happening.
so in essence, it could also be looked at as if I were to compare this to, let's say there was a $3 million clerical error 3 years ago or something like that. Like it's the money's owed to them at this point, right?
Correct.
The city settled, and because we have an obligation with the city for our percentage of that statute, I'm assuming, or just.
Well, the when you look at your tax bill, right, you have the different entities that, but ultimately this, when you pay your tax bill, you're paying it through the city. So they're sort of collecting it for everybody, right?
Right.
If they didn't collect it for everybody, then Freighter would have, in theory, I guess, sued all of the taxing entities. And we would be on the hook for 3 million directly to Freighter. So the city is kind of the clearinghouse.
No, I get that part of it. The direct point I'm trying to make is, again, this, I don't like saying this in these meetings, but this is another thing that is completely out of our control. That we have to pay back, and we can either choose to pull it out of fund balance. And when I say we, I mean the board, at some point, the board will have, you'll be bringing, I'm assuming at some point, you'll be bringing this to the full board for discussion, and then.
It'll be on discussion the next couple of meetings.
So we'll discuss it at the next board meeting, and then at some point we'll have to vote as to what we're going to do from those options. If the options are paid out of fund balance or pass it along to the taxpayers. Though, like, those are the two main
Yeah.
venues, and then from those, it's different ways to do that, from those things, like you outlined in your document. Spread out the levy over 2 to 3 years and just try to get it taken care of, hoping there's nothing else that comes into play. Or spread it out over a lot of years so that the marginal increase is small.
Few bucks a person or
A few
something.
bucks a person, but it's almost like it's a few bucks indefinitely at that point then. Okay, so that's something that the board, you'll present to the board, and then the next step is basically that you present it and then we go from there.
Yeah, I think what I'll want from the board at some point is some indication on. I guess what Jason was saying, when we go to the scene and we say, here's the financing plan we want to look at. Are we more interested in having a bigger pill to swallow for a shorter time? Or a smaller pill to swallow for a longer time? And again, the city will work with us on either of those. I don't have a strong recommendation on which is better. I want some indications from the board there.
Understood. This is gonna be a tough one no matter what, because ultimately it's taxpayer that. It's gonna come, the money's coming from the taxpayer, even if we're paying out of fund balance, because that fund balance. Gets replenished from tax base. Somewhere down the line, it's just, like, I think you said it right, but. I didn't want to swallow the pill, like, you gotta take it in one way or another. All right, that's unfortunate, but, you did a really good job of explaining it. And I guess we will take it one step at a time.
Yeah, I would just add, it's a tricky thing too, I think because it's freighter and, the whole state values the medical complex. And so it's hard because there's a single entity that is, I'll say, happy, that being freighter. A whole bunch of people are not gonna be happy with the property taxes, yet we all value freighter being, right? So it's, this would be a lot easier, I think, if it was an entity people didn't like. But it's a tough spot.
Okay, well, thank you for that, and, we will hear more about it in future meetings.
So just one last question, is there like an expectation, does the city have an expectation of when the district will let them know when we'll pay them back, or is it kind of?
They're being super chill about it.
Okay.
What John has
John's
said,
pretty chill.
yeah,
so.
what John has said is, and he repeats this a lot. And I need to remember this, that our school district is unique in that the only municipality that lies in our district is the city. Most school districts have multiple municipalities, and so you're trying to do with multiple local governments. And I think one reason that we have such a good relationship with our city is it's all the same taxpayers all the time. So we're able to collaborate in ways that maybe many other school districts can't, because sometimes you have one municipality that likes an idea, another municipality hates the idea, and the school district is in the middle of that. So our city has been in all cases, but in this one in particular, has been really, really understanding of, let's find like you said, it's not the news we want, but let's find the most reasonable way to work through it.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Liz?
That's it.
Okay, then we will move on to 3G Medicaid filing process, and this comes as a result from some public comments and questions, and us asking what it was in reference to. And Scott, I appreciate you. I think originally you had said the October meeting. I appreciate you being able to put something together even on shorter notice. So we can just get the answer to the concern out there.
Yeah, so I think I'll start with saying the allegation is completely untrue. And there's a couple of quotes I'd like to read. This comes from Jonathan Swift. He was a fighter in the, I think, 1600s or 1700s. What he said is, falsehood flies and truth comes limping after it. So that when men come to be undeceived, it is too late. The jest is over and the tale hath had its effect. Another, I guess, philosopher says, and this is George Christoph Lichtenberg, given that name, also someone from the 1600s or 1700s. The most dangerous of all falsehoods is a slightly distorted truth. And that is what we're seeing here. We began engaging with a company called Compass Care 3 years ago. Since then, our Medicaid filings have gone up substantially. The amount of revenue that we've gotten has almost tripled. What we are holding, accountable is the wrong word. Compass Care, the company that we use, has proprietary software that makes it, I'll say, easier for our teachers to log the time they're spending with students that qualify for Medicare. The only way you get, I'm sorry, Medicaid. Yes, they do. The only, here's how Medicaid in school districts works. If a student has a disability, qualifying disability, and they qualify for free and reduced lunch, generally speaking, they have to be low income and have an IEP. I'll say it that way. And there's even more trivial stuff, but generally speaking, have to have an IEP and be low income. When we have a student like that receives services in nursing, special ed, OTPT, as long as we log those hours spent with that student, we get Medicaid reimbursement. So in effect, the better you are at logging the hours and identifying the students, you have to get permission from the parent to apply. So if you're good at identifying, good at getting permission, and good at logging hours, you get more money. The way to maximize your money is by having all those done 100% perfect, okay? I doubt there's any school district in the state that does it 100% perfect. In fact, hopefully everyone is on a continuous improvement, right? You always want to be working towards, are we capturing every student? Are we capturing every called billable minute, essentially, so that we can get the most of our money? In fact, Stacy, our director of special ed, has a meeting with her staff at the beginning of every year, and with Compass Care, the company that we use. And she emphasizes this to her staff. One thing she told them this year is, hey, and I'm going to paraphrase, hey, this is important for you to do, because as you can imagine, none of us like paper, right? I'll speak for myself. I don't love it. I know that my doctor in the doctor's office they complain about the paperwork they have to do. Generally, we don't like paperwork. What Stacy has said is, hey, please do your best with this paperwork. What's at stake is $600,000. The best that we can come up with is, because that is the number she used, and that's the number that we heard at our board meeting, is somehow that was misconstrued into, we're not getting 600,000. I hope we get more than 600,000. Because as I said, the more that we can get exactly precise, the more money we're going to get. But we are doing everything the way we should be. We're doing it better every year, and you can see it in our results.
Okay, thank you. I think that answers the questions that I had. I think that substantiates that there was nothing wrong here. In fact, I think you've brought to light that it's a good thing, and I hope that if there's any parents that are not agreeing to this, that could be, it's to the betterment of all students if they would agree to it. Said some like that was one of the conditions.
Yeah, parent consent form is extremely important.
Mhm. So we're doing what we can to Stacy is doing what she can to make sure we are identifying. Compass Care is doing what they can to make sure that it makes it easy for us to log. And then that third part is making sure that we have communication with the parents and that they know. Obviously, we have the communications that they know, but if any of them are saying, well, I don't want to do that, then we need to make sure that we're on, why and or that they know that a direct result is increased cost to the entire district. Correct.
Yeah, and I would just, the only thing I would add is I started with those quotes of just the nature of falsehoods, right? You can't unring certain bells. And we experience, I think, that in our personal lives. School district experiences that, but it's unfortunate that we're put in a position to disprove falsehoods.
And from the report that is in here from Compass, just so I understand this correctly, so in 2024-25, so the $735,000 and some change, that was money that came back to the district from the Medicare claim, or Medicaid claims.
Correct.
Right, okay, so, and again, we don't know where that $600,000 number came from. But
We can only speculate.
we're only speculate, but we're showing here that we are doing things properly. In fact, for last year, we were reimbursed over $735,000.
Mhm.
I keep
So-
them all listed.
A whistleblower, okay. So we don't know exactly, all right. All right, well, thank you, I don't have any more questions, Liz, do you? Thank you, staff, for putting it together on short notice, I appreciate it. And we can, I guess, put that issue aside.
I guess a question for the committee, do you want board follow-up on that?
I think you could just email this information or add it, include it in the superintendent update, just to close the loop, since we've heard it a number of times now.
Do we want to do that, or do we want to just have it as an information item, or were you saying like as part of the superintendent's update from the beginning of the meeting?
Just the floor. I am really hesitant to give a lot of air to a lot of these things. I think that it's an attention seeking person who, the more air we give to these sort of
I don't want to give,
ridiculous claims.
I don't want to give air either, but also I look at this as something that, that's just a reinforcement of we are doing the right things. And I don't think the district gives itself enough credit publicly for the things that we do right. So That's my opinion.
You can, you're the chair,
Okay.
I'm comfortable with whatever.
I think it's what Mr. Ecker said earlier. We, thank you for acknowledging that. We believe we are doing all the right work. However, how are we supposed to continue to refute falsehoods or misrepresentations? Because if that's what Scott is constantly asked to do, he's unable to do the good work. And so at some point, we have to have the ability to just continue to do our work well. And it is not unusual in government for people to make falsehoods or false representations of what the organization stands for. If questioned, we are able to respond. But the question has to be one in which that is valid and is based in fact. And so I'll summarize by saying we're in an unforgiving battle if the opponent or the other side is constantly able to say, I heard from a source and is unable to tell us who the source is, yet we are supposed to be transparent. So the gaslighting that is happening is really ironic when people are constantly saying we're not transparent, yet the source in which the claim is coming from is unknown. It really makes our work difficult. I think that's what I'm trying to paraphrase what Scott is trying to say. And I think we all are feeling that. We're very proud of the work we do. And if need be, we are willing to defend it in the public square as much as we need to, but we're unable to do that constantly if and I hate to use terms like the other side or what have you, because it shouldn't be that way. But if the individual or other side is using falsehoods and hearsay and unsubstantiated claims, it's hard for us to have a fair, transparent, reasonable, results-oriented conversation. I'll just say that.
I'm fine with saying this was a non-issue, and you've shown that, so I don't think we need to give it any more attention. The board's time is better spent on other things the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to 3H, Human Resources Update.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you find the slides? Right at the top. Elders. Hiding. So what I bring to you monthly are updates on some of our key performance areas and other data that we track to monitor the health and well-being of staffing in the organization. So the first or second slide that you'll see is an update related to class sizes. I'm currently in the process of collecting the Milwaukee area school district comparisons to go ahead and take a look at where we are for the 25-26 school year. I am confident.
Can we put that in the slideshow? Okay. Thank you.
I am confident that if we don't continue to have the absolute smallest class sizes in the Milwaukee metro area, that we will absolutely be very near that again this year.
So in some cases, they've actually gone down.
In some cases, they have gone down. And again, these are the averages. So in the comparisons that I gather from our other local school districts in the area, we get both the average class size by grade level, as well as the range, both the high and the low class size for us to look at as well. Okay. The next slide looks at our vacancy fill rates. We are ahead of where we were last year from an educational operational staff side of things, and we are just under 99% on the teacher side of things. We have a couple, if we were to look at an area that if we could fill those positions, we would be over 99%. It's really special education. And so we continue to go ahead and look at opportunities we have to go ahead and get access to candidates. I have reached out to some staffing agencies to go ahead and help connect us with some candidates as we've been unsuccessful in seeking or in securing qualified candidates in that space.
Yeah, I think at the last board, maybe you presented in saying, pretty much that the ones that are unfilled are ones that every district across the state is having a problem filling because there's not enough high quality candidates available, right?
Correct.
So,
So in addition to looking at staffing agencies, we are also looking at candidates who we can train as well. Demonstrate potential, but yet need the training. We have the wherewithal to support them in some spaces, not all, in the spaces where we need highly qualified and trained individuals. We will not settle, and we will make sure we have the people we need in those places.
In terms of like, how this impacts students, then are there additional special education aids in areas where we might not have a teacher or how?
Yeah, it varies kind of what the situation is. If I were to channel my inner Stacy Clem, Stacy would say that it's not necessarily about the number of people we have and about the caseloads. So please know that our theory of action behind staffing for special education is always to go to move forward with the start of the school year with the very smallest caseloads, knowing that over the course of the school year, those caseloads increase over time. So even in some cases, while we have maybe a half of an FTE or a full FTE unfilled, in some cases, the caseloads are still within our desirable range, even if they're at the higher end versus the lower end. So she would describe that, again, in terms of looking at the overall caseload and how the school is functioning. In the places where we are at the higher end and where we've seen some students move in since the start of the school year and have students with IEPs that we need to support, we have deployed additional temporary staffing in those cases.
Thank you.
Yeah, and please know that literally between Leah Claiborne and myself and Stacy, we are talking multiple times a day about how needs are being met and where we're seeing shifts or changes. So we are very closely in contact. The next slide looks at, again, our overall voluntary teacher retention. This number has not changed since the end of August, and we remain over our 90%. The next slide shows where we're at from one of our other indicators, an effective teacher retention standpoint. So this metric takes a look at the teachers who were evaluated on a summary year during the 2004-2005 school year. And it looks at of those teachers who were evaluated, who was rated as effective or proficient in 2 domains related to instruction and classroom management. Of the 186 some teachers who had a summary year last year, and of those who were effective, we retained almost 95% of them. And so again, our goal is to maintain that number above 90%. You can see the considerable gains that we've made on retaining those effective teachers over the past several years. Very exciting. Yeah, and that is really like, that is a metric that we were finally just captured this week, once we have, again, stabilized from our retention rate. We haven't had any changes from August. Then I went ahead and calculated that.
I'm really proud of this. I mean, just so Jason, you made the statement. It was my first year, and I remember vividly, Leanne Fraley said, we want to keep all of our teachers. And that's when I said, well, wait a minute. We need to have a metric where we can identify who are the teachers who are considered high performing teachers. Those are the teachers that you want to keep. And that's in any organization. And so I want to thank Sarah. This is my opportunity to thank Sarah, because I took that concept and we talked about it and said, Sarah, please work with our team to identify what are the metrics that we use to identify a highly effective teacher. And then let's make sure that we're keeping those people. And so that's a really high number. And the fact that we were so low. So to the credit of the board, when the board said, and I think this is a really good example of the board being at a policy governance level of saying, we want to keep teachers. And through the dialogue, we said, we want to keep effective teachers, and the board said, yes. Now go find a way to identify it. That's the operational side of the work. Sarah and her team did a great job, and since then, we've been able to define and to retain those highly effective people. So kudos to you and your team, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Quick question, is there like a synapse or synopsis or a summary as to like what are those metrics that you're using for considering the effective teacher?
Yeah, absolutely. I can certainly put that together
Yeah.
and demonstrate which domains, like what.
Even as an
numbers
addendum or something, I think that would be interesting to
they are, how
know.
defining that.
Especially if someone were to come in and just ask and say, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I couldn't define it right now, but it sounds like we do have documentation that could, so great.
Happy to do so. Yeah. The next slide, just relates to where we're at with our FTE. We know that the board approved 904.82 FTE in the spring. We continue to have some fluctuations as we get creative and problem solve in some different areas. And so we continue to be, under, but not by much, our FTE. Again, it's very important that we're using that FTE to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students, and our staff in the organization, but that we're staying within our means. No pun intended. The next slide, looks at our, now that we're started into the school year, our substitute fill rates for teachers. You can see the past 3 years in the colored lines, and you can see the blue dot, which is where we're at, as of Monday, with our sub fill rates. So we're just hovering right below 100% for teachers. And Natalie, if you wouldn't mind the next slide. For our educational operational staff. Now, we don't get subs for all of our educational assistants or admin assistants or other positions in this classification. But for those that we do, I think we're 98% for teachers and we're about 96% for this group, which you can see is higher than we've been in the past 3 years. So continuing to maintain those higher fill rates, which again, makes sure that the services we're providing to kids and the environment that our staff is working in is less impacted by absences when they take place. Conversely, our employee attendance rate since the start of the school year has been right around 97-98%. So that is also helping maintain our fill rate. And that is all I have for you today.
What other factors do you think help maintain a high fill rate for substitutes?
So again, I think it's many, as we look to the feedback that we get from substitutes, they want a competitive wage. They want a good experience when they come to our schools. They want to have good lesson plans, the support from other staff. And they want to feel like, their work is making a difference. So, in totality, it's really about the experience that they have. And even with the changes that we've made related to substitute compensation, they are still enjoying the environment. For your information, we are going to monitor what our budget looks like this school year. We have not announced or not published any incentives because we want to go ahead and maintain or monitor our budget to see how we're coming in. But certainly if we see that we are coming under budget and that we're maintaining the fill rates that we need to, we could certainly add incentives later on. Thank you for the information. Absolutely.
All right, any other questions? Okay, then, that looks like that is it for today's agenda. So we can move on with 4A, confirm the next meeting and call to adjourn. Next meeting. That would be October 15th. And it looks like there is something already up with Celine here from 10 to noon on October 15th. Is that what we're on? So, yeah, okay. All right, then, I move to adjourn. May I have a second?
There's nothing.
And, Jason, or Liz,
Yes.
Jason, yes. And the time is 11:11 a.m.